There we go.
Well, thank you so much again for your lovely introduction. As Katrina mentioned, today is part 2 of 3 webinars, and this evening's focus is on mastering your life admin and blitzing procrastination. And I think it's something that no matter where we're at in our business journey, if we are brand new or if we've been doing it for decades and have multiple people working underneath us, it's constantly a work in progress. You know, we get some good techniques, and then the onion of life peels off another layer, and then we need to sort out the next bit again. So wherever you're at in your particular business journey, tonight you'll be able to take away a few more tips. Or what you might get also is some validation that you're doing a really great job, which is for a lot of us really important as well. So in a moment, we'll check in with your homework to see how you went from last week. And then we're going to go through a whole bunch of information about the costs of disorganization and what that actually costs us personally. We're going to look at why is it that we actually become disorganized, and then really zero in on the procrastination piece. So what type of procrastinator you are in particular, and then we're going to do some specific tools that will help you in a really practical, grounded way, day to day, to get basically more stuff done, which is delightful. Then by the end of the webinar, we're going to make sure you've got some more homework, some more things to do, so you don't lose any momentum between now and next week. So once again, as we're going through, make sure you've got your pen and your paper handy. Take as many notes as you like. If there's any questions at all, no matter when it is during the webinar, pop them in the chat box, and Katrina's going to be monitoring that. So if there's anything that we can't answer at the exact time, we'll answer it at the end. And I think we should get straight into it. So for those who were here last week, we are going to have a look at last week's homework. So you had 3 things to do. You had to ask 3 people for the business. Watch Brené Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability if you haven't seen it already, and to be saying your affirmation every day, minimum 30 times a day, with 10 of those into the mirror. So in the chat box, if a couple of you could pop in a bit of an update as to how you went with asking for the business, a comment on the Brené Brown video and what you may have got out of it, and any triumphs or troughs with that affirmation. I know that for a lot of us, it can be a little confrontational to be saying it, particularly into the mirror. So for those who are new this week, the affirmation was, I love and accept myself exactly as I am. And everybody was saying that 3 times. So I'm just going to have a check of the chat box. Type away, everybody. Oh, fabulous. Meredith. She's booked a date to discuss the business with a lady. Yay. Go, Meredith. Really, really cool. Fabulous. We'll see some more from some others who are online at the moment. At the moment, Meredith, you're getting a gold star. All right, as we're progressing on, write down how the rest of your homework went, and we'll check back in with that as well. Oh, we just had some fabulous updates here. So Kim watched the vulnerability TED Talk and said it was amazing. I totally agree. I'd love to hear some of your takeaways from that video as well. Candice had a one-on-one today, and she asked for the business, and she's deciding on which starter kit, which is brilliant. Go, Candice. And then Meredith, how funny is this? She said, funnily enough, somebody else approached me about the business. So something that I notice all the time when I work with business owners is once they put themselves out there and they take the big risks and they start literally asking for the business, being comfortable in their skin and putting themselves out there, that business starts to manifest towards them as well. So what an excellent example. I love that. Oh, and Annie said she went to the doctors this morning and came away with signing him up. How good is that? Really brilliant. And Jenny said that she loved how the Brene Brown video ended with the affirmation, I am enough. I completely agree. Fabulous. Really solid work, everybody. Beautiful. Okie dokie. So today's topic of mastering your life admin and blitzing procrastination, we're going to kick on into straight away. So first up, we're going to have a look at some of the costs of disorganization. So as we go through these, I want you to have a think about which is your major cost. All of us are different and many of us have a bit of everything. So one of the major costs of disorganization is probably the most obvious one, which is money. So this is the money associated if you don't have all of your paperwork in order and you're ready at the doctor's to sign somebody up and you don't have your details ready and you lose out on a potential customer, you lose out on a potential business associate. It's also, if you're anything like previous me, if you get a gift card and you find it 13 months after you were given it and they no longer accept it. It's also overdue fines, having to pay bills twice, that sort of thing. The next cost of disorganization is time. So this is the time spent faffing about, looking for that really special place or clever place that you put something for a rainy day, or it is waiting on the phone to Virgin Mobile or to Telstra because you can't find your account number. It's all of that time that we expend because we could have done something more organized in the first place. It's also running late, and that is an affliction that more bear than I think they wish to. Now, the third cost of disorganization is most likely my major one. This is the inner mean girl or the inner mean boy inside our brains that says things like, everybody else got their stuff together, why couldn't you? Or it says, I can't believe you forgot to bring all of that paperwork, everybody else remembered it. And it kind of bullies you internally. It's the negative self-talk that we referred to last week. So that's another major cost of disorganization. Then the last one is relationships. So this is the impact that us being disorganized has on the people around us. So if you are in a relationship, for example, and you're always running late or you're coming home crabby because you couldn't find all of the things that you needed, or you're just generally not fabulous to be around that evening because you got flustered all day because you didn't have everything done or you didn't get through your to-do list. This can also be in a work setting if you're showing up to meetings or to coffee catch-ups and you don't have everything prepared. So we really want to make sure that we can avoid all four of these to the best of our ability. So in the chat box, what I want you to do is to write down which is your major cost of disorganization. So it might be money, time, emotions, or relationships. Yeah, a few emotions in there. Quite. Yeah, we're getting a bit of a mix at the moment. Time, emotions. Oh, look, this is such a fabulous example. One of you hasn't done your tax in 2 years, and that particular example uh, fits into a lot of those. You know, the money that you're not getting back, the time uh, spent looking for the information that the ATO needs when you finally get around to it, the emotional churn in your gut, the guilt, and then taking it out on the people around you. So kids, friends, family, that sort of thing. Great example. Uh, yeah, there's a lot here. The consensus seems to be time and emotions, which is pretty common when we look across the board, aside from the guys who are online as well, but time and emotions is generally the main one. So have a bit of a think about if you had more of that thing, so more of that time or more of that emotions, what could you actually do with it? So for those with time, if they had more time, they could be researching more about the new products coming into Young Living. Cool. For those who had a stronger emotional landscape, they could be building up their confidence so they can walk in and ask for the business again. Isn't it funny how these things actually impact our every single day? So we want to make sure that now that we are aware of what disorganization or our level of disorganization is costing us, that we can actually use it to our advantage now. Beautiful. So I want to have a very quick look at why we actually become disorganized. Now, as humans, we're very complex beings, so there are thousands of reasons, but I've taken a handful that we can have a look at this evening. So one of the reasons that we're disorganized is because we've learnt habits, particularly from our parents. It's so funny. When we join a workplace, for example, they often teach us how to be organized. They say, well, you get this piece of paper and then you give it to accounts, and then accounts gives it to the next department, and we go, oh, okay. uh, but it's funny with our personal organization, or if we're running a business, as everybody here is, nobody really teaches us this part. So we want to keep the good stuff from our parents and unlearn the rest. The next one is a change in circumstance. And by this, I mean major changes in circumstances. So it could be moving in with somebody that you've never lived with before. So it could be housemates. It could be you got married and you moved in together, and all of a sudden, you've got this person who leaves stuff everywhere. You think, oh God, how am I going to manage this? And that takes its toll. And so then we start to mold into the people around us. Having a baby is also a major change in circumstance that often leads people to become quite disorganized. So we just need to be aware of these, be kind to ourselves along the journey, and continue on. So the next one, again, we touched on this one last week. This is the perfectionism and anxiety. So if we're feeling the feeling like everything has to be just so and really perfect, it can get in our way from even starting a task. So more on that in a little bit. And the last one is saying yes to too many things. I want you to use the raise hand button on the webinar to say if this is something that maybe you might be managing at the moment. Yeah, there's quite a few who have raised their hands. um, Stereotypically and more commonly, this is something that females manage. Saying yes to too many things. Yes, yes, yes. We're seeing a lot of yeses. Okay, beautiful. All right, I'm going to pop my video on pause now so you can continue to keep your attention on the screen as we move into procrastination. Now, this is something that many people manage. And I want to talk at first a little bit about what it is. So procrastination is the tendency to delay taking action. It's when we have a bit of a disconnect between what our intention is and the actual implementation. So for many of us, it means that we're not actually starting to do the work until we're dangerously close to the deadline. For many of us, we started doing this at school. If you've done any kind of tertiary education, that's often a place where it is perpetuated if this is something that you're managing. Waiting till the last minute until you get things done. So the problem with this is that when we're in a structured environment, such as a school, we work for somebody else, we're studying, there's often very clear deadlines as to when things are done. But where this is a bit of a challenge for all of us is that we run our own businesses and there's actually not very clear deadlines when we are the boss. So this is where we can really come into some challenges because we're not getting that pressure that we think we're craving, and we're doing the put off until kind of an infinitely long time away. So it's funny, a lot of people think it's a habit that's very easily reversed, and they think that if you just get your act together, you can sort it out. But it's actually, we're looking at a problem of self-regulation. So it's not necessarily something to do with time management and planning. However, we are going to look at some of those tools a little bit later on for alternate reasons. So, procrastinators, if this is you're not different in your ability to estimate time, but sometimes you might be a little bit more optimistic than others. There's a quote from a psychologist who is an expert in this area, and he says that telling someone who procrastinates to buy a weekly planner is like telling someone with chronic depression to just cheer up, which of course we would never be doing. So we want to have a look at the three basic types of procrastinators. And as I'm going through, have a bit of a think as to which one you might be. So Dr. Joseph Ferrari from the DePaul University in Chicago is one of the leading researchers on procrastination, and he found that there's three basic types of procrastination. So if we have a look at the first one, it's called, somewhat hilariously, the arousal type. And this is the thrill seeker. These are the people who wait till the very last minute to start something because they're getting the euphoric rush. They're getting the adrenaline and they're getting the cortisol spike to help them to get things done, also they think. The next type is the avoider. So these are the people who are avoiding either a fear of failure or, in some cases, a fear of success. So the thing about this particular individual is that they're quite concerned about other people's perceptions of them. So they would rather have other people think that they didn't bother, or they lacked the effort, or they didn't start something, than they didn't have the ability to complete that particular thing. And then the third type is a decisional procrastinator. So these are the people who really struggle to make a decision. So not making a decision absolves procrastinators of responsibility for the outcome of their events. So these are the people that are freaked out to say either yes or no, and take that responsibility that if they choose something and it doesn't work out, that the onus was on them, that was their choice that they made. So have a think about which one you are. Pop it in the chat box. I'm fascinated by what everybody is. Mine is predominantly and hilariously titled the arousal type. For me personally, it came during university when I seemed to get the same marks whether I started in week 1 or in week 12 on an assignment. There's 13 weeks in a semester for those playing along. So for me, it was ingrained that it kept being validated. And so I kept doing that essentially. And of course, as time's passed on, it's dawned on me that that's not really working for me. So I better come up with some other tools. So we've got the vast majority is that we've got avoiders. Yeah, we've got a comment here from Sarah saying that what avoiding means to her is more so that it's not so much what other people think, it's that she doesn't care so much about the actual topic, which I have heard that response a couple of times now. However, research-wise, that's what they're saying, that it's very, very deep down based on what other people are thinking of us. But I totally understand what you mean, Sarah. Sometimes it's a lack of interest in what you're actually doing. So I completely agree. And there's a lot of combinations between a lot of you as well. So avoiders and arousal, or a combination of a decisional and arousal. Really, really interesting. There's some great comments. Fabulous. Really, really good. So I'm going to show you a little cartoon at the moment. And I think this sums up what it feels like for many when we procrastinate. You know, we see a big decision or a big piece of work and we go, oh, freak out. And we think, you know what I'll do is I'll put a little blanket on there and I'll pop it to the side. And then I'll distract myself with something like cleaning or Facebook or eating or calling a friend or Instagram or tidying up. And then there we are at the end, sweating bullets, freaking out once again that we haven't started or commenced. I think that's a fabulous little diagram. We've got Yvonne who said, yes, cleaning, that's my procrastination. I agree, that is mine too. When I've got a lot to do, I've often got a very tidy house, which is quite funny. So sometimes for some of us, procrastination is actually a result of something falling through the cracks. So as one of you alluded to, it's not always that we've got a big, deep psychological reason for things. Sometimes it's purely that we're forgetting. So if we're not writing things down, we actually, in a lot of cases, simply forget to do it later. So if you're falling into that category, we want to be making to-do lists with all of the tasks on it and only cross them off when we're 100% completed. So for those who are writing to-do lists, jolly good. My preference is for you to write a brand new, fresh one every single day. And the way that I prioritize and recommend that you're going to start prioritizing your to-do list is as follows. So it's called the ABCDE method of prioritizing, and it comes from a fabulous book called Eat That Frog. It's by a gentleman called Brian Tracy. And the title of the book comes from a Mark Twain quote that says something along the lines of, if you have to eat a frog in the day, eat that first. If you have to eat 2 frogs in a day, eat the biggest one first. So it really dives into the concept that we want to do our biggest, ugliest, slimiest, most disgusting task first, because then we can enjoy the rest of the day and feel more at ease. So in the morning, I want you each to be writing your to-do list, and some of you, probably a lot of you, are already doing this. And then this is the way that I recommend that all of my clients and you guys start to prioritize. So you've written your list, you might have 10 or 15 things on there as an example. And then you go down the list and you give each of them a letter from A to E. So the things on the list that would be given an A, the things that are very important. So these are the things that you absolutely must do. If they're not done today, there are dire circumstances. So these might be things like lodging with the tax office, something that you've had a very strict deadline with. It must be done. And so that would be an A. The next category is B, which stands for important. So it's something that you should do. It's not quite as important as the A, but it really still needs to be done. So this could be something like writing a follow-up email to somebody that you asked the business for. But if it happens to happen later in the day, you're okay. C is for things that are nice to do. So that could be downloading a new app. It could be going through and tidying up the kitchen cabinets. Nice, very nice to do, but don't necessarily have to happen today. D goes next to all the things that you can delegate to somebody else. For those who have kids, if you can delegate some of those household tasks to them, please do. And E is for eliminate whenever possible. So once you've done your list, sometimes you think, actually, do I really need to do that? And if it's a no, that's an E. So once you've done all of your list, you might find that you've got multiple A's and multiple B's as an example. So then you'd say A1, A2, B1, B2, B3, C1, etc. This works remarkably well, and there's some comments that have come through from you guys that are saying that you actually write too many to-do lists, and I hear this quite frequently as well. So what I would recommend is doing something called a master to-do list. So this might be something that you keep on an Excel spreadsheet as an example. So a master to-do list is literally everything you have to do. So everything from buying your mum a birthday present, to cleaning out the garage, to following up with the doctor about his starter pack, from doing your monthly bookkeeping, from diarising the webinars coming up. Literally everything goes on the master to-do list, and you have that next to you when you write your daily to-do list. So daily to-do list should absolutely be no longer than half of an A4 page. If you're writing more than that, in most cases, you're not going to get it done. And that's a bit demoralizing when you get to the end of the day and it's not completed. So if that's you, start folding the piece of paper that you write your to-do lists on in half and only allow yourself that much space. Don't write smaller, only allow yourself to write that many to-do list tasks. Cool. There's a comment here from Elizabeth that says there's a great app called a Wunderlist, which is true. I hear a lot of my clients totally love that particular app. And if you're a technologically savvy person, go for it. I hear fabulous things. If you're desperate to get away from your phone and your computer, pen and paper is absolutely fabulous. The Wunderlist app is spelt Wunderlist, so Wunderlist. Comes from Germany, hence the spelling. You're welcome, Candice. Fabulous. So one of the homework actions that you've got and up until next week is to implement this ABCDE method of prioritizing. So add it on to the daily to-do list that you're doing and then follow it. So as I mentioned last week with this concept of the internal parent, once again, you're going to have to be the internal parent and say, well, I know you might not want to write your list or follow it or do anything on it or prioritize it. But darling, you will feel so much better if you get on and prioritize your list. Then once you've done the very first thing off your list, you can go and have a cup of tea. Sometimes that's the kind of thing that helps me. I am an expert in positive self-talk and using it as a motivator. Fabulous. Okay, so we shall move on to this concept of organizing a brilliant average ideal week. And as I've said there, and fitting it all in. So for most of us, if not every single person that's on this call, you've probably got a million things that you are trying to fit into an hour before school pickups or drop-offs, if you've got kids, before the end of the day, before the end of the week, etc. So there's an interesting quote that says that people often underestimate what they can get done in a year, but overestimate what they can get done in a day. Hence why so many people have massive to-do lists. So we're going to look at organizing a typical week for you into an ideal structure. So there is a fabulous analogy, and some of you may have heard this before, and if you have, bear with me, that there was a professor at the front of a lecture hall, and he pulled out a great big glass jar and stuck it on the table in front of him. And then next to the glass jar, he pulled up a big bucket of rocks and said to all the students, I want you to come down here one by one and stick in a rock each until the rocks reach the brim of the glass jar. And so one by one, they toddled down and popped all the rocks in until it reached the rim of the jar. And he said to them, is the jar full? And they thought it was a trick question. And they said, well, yes, the jar is full. And so he said, and he pulled out a bucket of pebbles and stuck it on the table and then poured them in through the cracks of the rocks. And he said to the students, is the jar full now? And they kind of had a bit of a giggle and they said, oh, yes, I see what you mean. And then he said, and he pulled out a bucket of sand and poured the sand through the cracks of the pebbles and the rocks until it reached the rim of the jar. And he said, only now is the jar full. Had we put the sand in first, there would be no room for the pebbles and no room for the rocks. So I love this story about the concept that if we put in the things that don't mean as much to us first, there is no space for the things that are really important to us. So from an organizational standpoint, on your piece of paper in front of you, I want you to write 3 columns. So the columns are rocks, pebbles, and sand. So write down rocks, pebbles, and sand in 3 separate columns. And in a moment, what you're going to do is to write all of the activities that you complete in an average week and categorize them under the different headings. So here's the categories. Rocks are the things that must be completed on that day at that time. So rocks are the things that must be completed on that day at that time. So that might be something like, for me, it would be running a workshop or a seminar. I must complete it at the time that it's scheduled. Pebbles are the things that must be completed on that day at any time. So pebbles must be completed on that day at any time. So that could be a certain phone call that you need to complete that day, but it doesn't matter if it moves around during that day. And then sand are the things that you'd like to complete but can happen any day. So for me, judge away, feel free. That is like watching The Bachelor. The Bachelor. I love that show. It can actually be watched any day. I can record it and watch it another day. So I'm going to give you some time now, about a minute or so, to write down all the things that you do in an average week and what category they go into. So this includes things like doing your supermarket shopping, doing your email follow-ups, getting out there and promoting your business. This might be doing online research about Young Living. It could be school pickups. It could be if you're doing any other study, these kinds of things. So literally everything that you do in an average week, I want you to pop under the categories of rocks, pebbles, or sand. So for those who just joined, rocks are the things that must be done on that day at that time. Pebbles are the things that must be done on that day at any time. And then sand are the things that can be done any day, any time, but you would still like to complete. So remember to pop in exercise. So we want to make sure your health and well-being is looked after. So if you go for walks, Pilates, the gym, catching up with your friends, meditation, any spiritual practices, time out, time to read a magazine, administration. Beautiful. If there's anybody that has any other categories or activities that are everybody on the call might be doing as well, pop them in the chat chat box. So sleep. I forgot that one. Beautiful. So let me know in the chat box when you've done. Beautiful. Got some that are done. Fabulous. Okay, so what I'm going to fabulous give to you after this is this little printable form which says Vision Scope Coaching's average ideal week. So the part that we just did is up the top, so where you've popped your rocks, your pebbles and your sand. And what you're going to do over the course of the next week is map out where everything fits in. So these are not your one-off birthday parties. These are your every single week actions and tasks that you're doing. And you're going to color code each of those rocks, the pebbles and the sand. So you have a different color for each. So I'm going to give you a bit of an example here. So your rocks, you might run a meditation circle as an example every single week, and you do that every Monday night not Monday night, you're on this call. Every Tuesday night from 7 till 8 p.m. So you write down in this part here, you'd be writing down there in your pen, meditation session, and then you'd color it in the color for rocks. I think you can all see that on your screen. So other things that you might be doing for rocks is you might have kids at school and you pick them up from school every day. So that would go all the way along here, Monday to Friday. They don't have much of a steady hand. So you'd be coloring all of that in and writing their school pickup. You'd also be writing in their school drop off. So you're popping in, oh, goodness. You're popping in all of your rocks first. Once they are all in, that's when you're putting in your pebbles. So that might be a different color. So your pebbles might be doing your admin for your Young Living business. And you might do that every Monday after you've dropped your kids at school, for example, for 2 hours. So you'd physically write in there, life admin, and then color it in with this color. You might have, you do some invoicing every Friday afternoon, and you do that about 1 o'clock. So you color that one in. You do your supermarket shopping every Saturday morning. That goes between 9 and 11 because you get a coffee while you're there. So see how those pebbles, if you couldn't do your supermarket shopping at that time, you could actually do it in the afternoon. It would be okay. Then once you've popped in all of your pebbles, you change your color and you pop in your sand. So that might be you're watching your Bachelor TV show, just like me. And that goes 7 till 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. So you pop that in there, etc., etc. So if you've got any questions, write them down as we go. But one thing that I find when people do this average ideal week is sometimes they find that they have too many tasks to actually fit into a week. And I see this every week. So I want you to do this activity over the course of the next week. Don't get too bogged down in the detail of it. Make sure it's reasonably accurate, but that's enough. And then once you've done it, pop it up somewhere that you see it. So if you've got a desk at home, a home office, pop it up in front of your desk. So if everything's running to a plan, this is what's happening in your week. You know, everybody in the household knows where you are, what you're up to, and you've also got more clarity as well. And I think this will help you in a really massive way. I follow this. If anybody is also a shift worker, you can still do this. You've just got more pebbles as well. Brilliant. As I said that. Yeah, so there was a question. Can you make up one that we can do a shift worker? Yes. So you might still have your rocks in that you might still be, for example, you've got a Sunday family night dinner with your parents. So that might be something that's a rock for you, that you go absolutely every single week, regardless of your shifts. But then your shift, for example, I'm going to draw, I'll just draw this example in blue. Your shift might be 6 a.m. To 3 p.m., for example, like that, bang, 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 bang. Then that will just move each week roughly, because you're generally doing roughly the same amount of hours. Yes, and I can make up a template that goes 24 hours for those shift workers as well. Brilliant, good question. Fabulous. If there's any other questions, pop them in there as well. You're welcome, Yvonne. Beautiful. Alrighty, so what we're going to have a look now at is the fact that we all have things that get in our way of getting stuff done. So for some of us, as we've spoken about already, some of us are procrastinators, some of us go to bed too late, some of us, not pointing any fingers except at myself, might eat one Tim Tam and then all of a sudden eat 5 in one go. You know, we've all got our shortcomings. So we're generally pretty aware of them, and we're going to now write them down and make a personal pledge that as of today, we're no longer going to do those things. So on the piece of paper in front of you, I want you to write down that title there, things I'm not going to do. And what you're going to write there is, under each of those bullet points, you're going to start each sentence with a no more or an I will not. So a no more or an I will not. And I'll give you some of my examples, and be gentle, these are works in progress. So things that are on my personal pledge are no more self-deprecating and putting my interests down. I will not thrash myself to get things done at the expense of my health. I will not struggle on my own. I promise to ask for help when I need it. And a bonus, I promise not to eat so much sugar. When in doubt, substitute. So I want you to start writing yours down. If some of you could pop yours in the chat box as well, that would be fabulous. So starting off every bullet point with a I will not or a no more. So I'll give you about a minute to do that now. Beautiful. So keep going. I will not or no more. Brilliant. Okay, so pop my video back on so you can see me again. So some of the examples that have come through is This is a great one. I will not head to the couch as soon as my kids are in bed. I'm sure a few can identify with that one. Really, really brilliant. Great example. A very profound one of I will not worry about things I cannot control. And that is a really massive one. You know, the courage and the understanding to know what you can and can't control is something very important. And another beautiful one is I will not second guess every word I say once I leave a conversation. So I'm going to come back to that one in a moment because I want to mention a few more things about that. But these are brilliant. So what this list is that you've just completed is not, it's not a self-flagellation list. So it's not that if you accidentally head to the couch as soon as your kids are in bed that you go, oh, and start thrashing yourself around. That is not what it's for. It is a list to gently remind you of the things that are important for you to do. So for the one of mine that said, I will not thrash myself to get things done at the expense of my health. Not too long after I wrote that, there I was on a Friday night, tapping away on my computer and knowing that I had really early clients on the Saturday. And it was enough for me to go, oh, I said I wasn't going to do this anymore. And I saved what I was working on, closed the laptop and popped it away. And one, for me, that's a big thing. But it didn't have to be a big deal, if that makes sense. It's a gentle reminder because for pretty much everything that you run on your list, these are very deeply ingrained habits that you've had for basically your whole life. So majority of your adulthood, most of your adolescence, and probably some of your childhood as well. So go easy on yourself. If you've got more things that come up to put on your personal pledge as the week progresses, please do. Don't let them swim around in your head thinking about it. We want to write those down so you can hold yourself accountable and be gentle with yourself along the way as well. We had another example come through from Tanya that says, I will not assume that I was wrong, which is so fabulous. So the example that came through that said, I will not second guess every word I said once I leave a conversation. I want to quickly digress into the concept of mindfulness, and I'm going to draw on the screen for you for a moment. So you're probably all familiar with the concept of, or the symbol, the infinity symbol. So we see that here. So when we look at mindfulness, this is a reasonably quick way to explain it, that if over here, oh, that's not going to work. This is the past. I'm going to point, this part here is the present. And over here is the future. Sorry about my dodgy writing. So ideally what we want to be doing is learning from the past, bringing that into the present, doing something about it, and then being inspired by the future and bringing that into the present and doing something about it. So what can happen to us is we can get stuck in one of these loops. So we can kind of get stuck in the past where we ruminate over the thing that we said. So like that example of second guessing the words that you're saying once you've left a conversation, is ruminating and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that thing. I'm such an idiot. What was I thinking? And we get really stuck here. We don't want that. Correspondingly, we also don't want to be stuck over here in the future, which is where we say, one day I'm going to build a beast of a business. One day I'm going to go back to study, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to make sure we're continuously flowing like this. Interestingly, this part over here in the past is more correlated with non-clinical depression, where we're going over and over the things that has previously happened. Over here, in this cycle of going around and round about what's to happen, is correlated with non-clinical anxiety. It's non-clinical, remember, so don't let that concern you, but it's a reminder that we want to learn from that thing that we said, not do it again and not beat ourselves up, be inspired by what we can do next time, and then do something about it right now. So hopefully that gives a little bit more clarity around that internal voice about the things that we've said to ourselves. Brilliant. And brilliant example that previous me is fist pumping from Hazel, which is no more eating on the run. My goodness, the number of times when I was very serious and corporate with blazers and heels that I was running out of my house with toast hanging out of my mouth and a muesli bar jammed in my bag, it was a little outrageous. So I totally hear you, Hazel. Really good. So I'm going to ask if you've got any questions about any of this topic at all to pop them in the chat box as we start to wind up, and then I'm going to rehash what your homework is for next week as well. So any questions that you've got, pop them in the chat box. I'm going to clear that beautiful drawing from the screen. Beautiful. So any questions, pop them down. No. Katrina, was there any questions that I missed as we were going through?
Hello. No, I think
Hi.
I answered them, but I had a question, or maybe like an observation when I was just watching you do the rocks and the pebbles and the sand, because I was looking at it going, okay, you know, it is something that has to be done, that my kids get to and from school, not negotiable.
Yes.
That needs to happen every day. However, is it possible you could look at that and go, yes, that's something that is a rock. However, can I delegate that, or can I do a car share, which means it still has to be done, but maybe I'm freeing up some time around that rock if you find that your life's full of rocks and you need some pebble room, or that's one thing.
We all need some pebble room.
Need some pebble room, a bit of sand thrown in for good measure.
Yes, absolutely. So it's a great recommendation. So once you've completed your average ideal week, I would do exactly that, what Katrina has alluded to, and have a look and say, well, is there anything here that I can actually delegate? Is there anything here that I hate doing? and can I manage that in a different way? So the way that I'd have a look at those tasks, so things that either don't fit in or are stressful or you don't like doing, is to do one of three things. So you can either accept them, avoid them, or amend them. So accept, well, my kids have to go to school, I'm the driver, so be it, I'll drive them. Amend the situation and say, well, my next door neighbour's kids go to the same school. Brilliant, I'm going to ask them, and we'll do car share every second day. Or avoid the situation entirely and say, it's all too hard, the kids aren't going to school. So obviously in that situation, you're still going to send your kids to school. But with many other tasks on your list, you actually do have the choice to be able to say, I'm scrapping it. I'm not going to do that one. It's not important to me. It doesn't sing out to me. So remember that those are your three options: accept, avoid, or amend with everything on your list. Yeah, good question though.
Yeah, my other kind of thought as well, often when you were doing the A's and the B's, so important has to be done and important needs to be done today at some point, is sometimes I find if people are not sure what that falls under, is to go back to your vision board, go back to your outcome. And a good question to ask yourself is this task taking me where I want to go? Is this task helping me accomplish my outcomes? And if the answer is yes, then you A or B it. If the answer is no, you can C, D, or E it, you know, so that's...
Yeah, and brilliant. exactly right. And one thing that I do that's a sort of a sideways step from that is when I'm in business mode, as in I am being the boss lady that I love being, and I'm looking at my to-do list, I think, will this make me money? And that doesn't take away the value that we're bringing to other people in improving their lives, making their lives healthier or happier. But I'm running a business at the end of the day. So does this task build my business or bring me money? No, because I think it's really easy for a lot of us to say you've got a business Facebook page to faff around on there all day and make it look beautiful. But is that at the end of the day bringing, building your business, building your empire, making you money? Not always. So that's another question that I ask myself too.
Good. I didn't see any other questions and nothing else has come through right now. So I guess it's homework time.
Okay. So homework then, for this week is to prioritize your daily to-do list using the ABCDE method. As when I send that format through to Katrina, I'm going to pop up the average ideal week and you can finish that for you and color code it for you. Spending about half an hour on it is probably about the right amount of time, just so you know, don't spend all night on it. And to continue to say that affirmation daily. So a reminder of that affirmation is I love and accept myself exactly as I am. So some of you have been mentioning throughout the week that you've been continuing up the good work. So jolly good, carry on. So to-do list, average ideal week, and say your affirmation and finish off any of those interactions that you had in asking the business. So if there's any emails that you need to send, follow-up calls that you need to do those and add that to your homework list as well. Brilliant. So thank you so much, everybody, for logging on tonight. Hopefully you can go and have a cup of tea if you haven't already had one. Let all of that soak in this evening, and then we'll see you again next week.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, everyone, for coming along. It's great to see you again. So I look forward to following up with you again. Please post your comments and your thoughts on tonight on the YL Entrepreneurs Facebook page. And once the recording is downloaded and I receive that list, then I'll pop that in the files section and put a note on the YL Entrepreneurs page. So thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.